In this video, we are going to head back to 1902 to pay a visit to the garden which nestles alongside the soaring bulk of Christchurch Spitalfields. The garden was the churchyard, and it once laboured under the unsalubrious nickname of Itchy Park, a sobriquet that is said to have come about as a result of the homeless who would sleep in it and the lice with which many of them were afflicted. Our guide for this visit is Jack London, the American novelist who spent several weeks in 1902 living the life of a homeless vagrant in the East End of London, researching for his book The People of the Abyss, a book that anyone with even a fleeting interest in the Jack the Ripper case should read in order to gain a true insight into the social conditions in the district in which the murders occurred. In Chapter 6, London teams up with two other men. One was a slender lad of 19, a burning young socialist, as London describes him, and a lad who was so slight and frail that a puff of wind might double him up and turn him over. His other companion was a man of 28, who eked out a precarious existence in a sweating den. Together they began exploring the East End. Having visited several locations, the latter of the two men announced, "And now I'll show you one of London's lungs. This is Spitalfields' garden." Jack London noted how he mouthed the word garden with scorn. Let's join them as they step into it. The shadow of Christchurch falls across Spitalfields' garden, and in the shadow of Christchurch at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I saw a sight I never wish to see again. There are no flowers in this garden, which is smaller than my own rose garden at home. Grass only grows here, and it is surrounded by sharp spiked iron fencing, as are all the parks of London town, so that homeless men and women may not come in at night and sleep upon it. As we entered the garden, an old woman between 50 and 60 passed us, striding with sturdy intention, if somewhat rickety action, with two bulky bundles covered with sacking slung fore and aft upon her. She was a woman tramp, a houseless soul, too independent to drag her failing carcass through the workhouse door. Like the snail, she carried her home with her. In the two sacking-covered bundles were household goods, her wardrobe, linen, and dear feminine possessions. We went up the narrow, gravelled walk. On the benches on either side was arrayed a mass of miserable and distorted humanity, the sight of which would have impelled Doré to more diabolical flights of fancy than he ever succeeded in achieving. It was a welter of rags and filth of all manner of loathsome skin diseases, open sores, bruises, grossness, indecency, leering monstrosities, and bestial faces. A chill, raw wind was blowing, and these creatures huddled there in their rags, sleeping for the most part, or trying to sleep. Here were a dozen women ranging in age from 20 years to 70. Next, a babe, possibly of 9 months, lying asleep flat on the hard bench, with neither pillow nor covering, nor with anyone looking after it. Next, half a dozen men sleeping bolt upright or leaning against one another in their sleep. In one place, a family group, a child asleep in its sleeping mother's arms, and the husband or male mate clumsily mending a dilapidated shoe. On another bench, a woman trimming the frayed strips of rags with a knife, and another woman with thread and needles sewing up rents. Adjoining, a man holding a sleeping woman in his arms. Farther on, a man, his clothing caked with gutter mud, asleep with head in the lap of a woman not more than 25 years old, and also asleep. It was this sleeping that puzzled me. Why were 9 out of 10 of them asleep or trying to sleep? But it was not till afterwards that I learned. It is a law of the powers that be that the homeless shall not sleep by night. On the pavement, by the portico of Christchurch, where the stone pillars rise toward the sky in a stately row, were whole rows of men lying asleep or drowsing, and all too deep sunk in torpor to rouse or be made curious by our intrusion. A lung of London, I said? Nay, an abscess, a great putrescent sore. "Oh, why did you bring me here?" demanded the burning young socialist, his delicate face white with sickness of soul and stomach sickness. "Those women there," said our guide, "will sell themselves for threepence or twopence or a loaf of stale bread." He said it with a cheerful sneer, but what more he might have said I do not know, for the sick man cried, "For heaven's sake, let us get out of this." And thus the party stepped out of the gardens and made their way along Commercial Street, passing opposite the entrance to Dorset Street, which had been made infamous in 1888 as the location of the murder of Mary Kelly.